my name is Cameron. I work at the University of Calgary, and my project, which is funded by New Harvest, is trying to improve outcomes of fish cell culture and reduce the reliance on something called fetal bovine serum. So what fetal bovine serum is it's the name is quite descriptive, but it's serum taken from fetal calves. So often what happens is during the slaughter process, if they find out that a cow has been pregnant, they take the fetus and they stick a needle into its still beating heart, and they suck out serum, and then that's the origin of fetal bovine serum. So it's a pretty gnarly process to produce it. So that's one reason why you want to get rid of serum in your cell culture, and why it's critical to get rid of it from the perspective of cellular agriculture. But then there's a lot of scientific reason, and there's a lot of batch-to-batch variation, as I'm sure you can imagine. So oftentimes there's issues with reproducibility of results when relying on serum. So yeah, there are many researchers and many organizations trying to produce cell cultured meat. Some of the big companies, there's a company called Shiok Meats in Singapore, Memphis Meats, Wild Type in Northern California. I'm leaving out tons of them. There's tons of these startup companies that are working to produce cultured meat. The reason why it hasn't reached market yet, or why the kind of path to a consumer product has been a little slower than plant-based meat, is that there are some technical challenges, but also the cost. And actually, one of the major cost drivers of cell cultured meat is these protein growth factors that I was talking about. So, something called serum-free medium exists. That's been around for decades, but it's expensive to identify variants of these really critical growth factors that are either cheaper to produce or more stable, or induce higher levels of cell proliferation, so you can use less of them. That's another way that you can kind of tackle this issue of cost related to growth factors in the cell culture media. So there's a number of companies working on it. There's scientific challenges, which are kind of outside of my area of expertise, but then there's also kind of cost issues related to these growth factors. So my project is helping to kind of inform and potentially address that issue as well. My advice is, if you want to get involved in kind of cellular agriculture, would be to there's a number of levels you can be involved at, right? So as a kind of an advocate, or sort of a person who's trying to promote it, maybe on social media or something like that. I think just kind of reading up on the science, on the technology, and on what the industry is trying to accomplish, then I think that you can get involved right away. Simply by informing yourself, and maybe informing your friends or your family or your peers. I think that's kind of the simplest way to get involved. If you want to get involved kind of in the lab, like I am, some labs take high school students as volunteers, but generally those need to be undergraduate students. So I would encourage you to major in something that you think could be beneficial to cellular agriculture, and it doesn't need to be biology. There's engineers who are solving problems related to kind of like bioreactors and some of the production scale challenges. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be biology. You can do engineering, you can do biochemistry, you can do chemistry. So there's a whole bunch of fields that aren't specifically cell biology that could still really benefit cellular agriculture. And so I think that kind of familiarizing yourself with where the industry is and where it needs to go is a big it's a really important step in terms of getting involved in the kind of lab scale, or this kind of startup scale. And that's kind of how I got involved. So I'm a protein biochemist, which does not immediately jump out as highly relevant to cellular agriculture, but because I was able to kind of familiarize myself with where the industry is. And there's lots of resources out there that many of these nonprofit organizations put out, like New Harvest and GFI and Cellular Agriculture Canada, that can help to inform you on those things. Then you might be able to identify a specific area that your background or your area of expertise might enable you to join in. So yeah, that would be my kind of, brief advice on how to get involved in cellular agriculture. I can show you around the lab very quickly if you want. There's not, it's not as glamorous as you might think, but I'll lift my laptop up here. So anyway, this is my lab bench. So it's actually, no, this is my lab bench here. So it's quite messy, but that just means that there's experiments in science on the go. So that's kind of where most of the experiments happen. The other most interesting piece of equipment here would be this here, which is a gene synthesizer. Sorry, it's maybe not the best shot there. So kind of looking at the benches, it's a pretty standard lab. Anyway,